serving as the mayor of the city of Pomona. I'm thankful I didn't hear any boos. Very much appreciated. Before I say a few words about Chuck and my relationship with Chuck, I just want to kind of give you an idea of what we're going to do this morning over the next half hour. In a moment, I'm going to just thank a few people who are here. I'm also going to say a few words courtesy of Roseanne. And then our former Pomona Police Chief, Richard Tiefenk, will be coming up to say a few words. And then the love of Chuck Bader's life will be up here as well to say a few words. And then we will dedicate this building behind us in honor of former mayor, actually former council member, and then mayor, and then assembly member Chuck Bader. So with that, I think what we'll do is, I understand that we have a young man here, Carson Bader. Carson is the grandson of Chuck Bader, and he's going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. If you can't stand for any reason, no worries. We won't take any pictures of you not standing and send them to the Daily Bulletin. No worries. But if I can have Carson, if you'll please come up here so you can lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Give him a nice big hand.
Please put your hands over your heart. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I also forgot to mention that I have my son here. Just to clarify, he's not my grandson. I know, I'm old. Be having a child. But his name is Roy, and he's 2 years and 4 months. He's been gracious enough to join me up here. So we have a few folks to acknowledge. I think the group that I want to acknowledge first is there was a committee that helped organize this event. And so I'm going to ask the committee members, you know who you are, if you'll be so kind enough to stand, just please stand, and let's give them a nice big hand for helping organize this event. Just so you didn't see Lisa back there, Lisa's back there, so thank you. I also want to thank my colleagues from the Pomona City Council. Anytime you make a decision like this, it does actually have to go through a process, and it went through several. It went to the Parks and Rec Commission, Community Life Commission. It did, and they approved it. I want to thank them. But I want to thank my colleagues for being here. From the District 3 City Council member Nora Garcia. Nora. Also want to thank District 5 City Council member Steve Lestro. Welcome. We also have some other dignitaries. I understand by the way, when you get these lists, you hope they're here, and you try to verify that they're here, but sometimes they won't be here. Okay. The Honorable Bill Jones, also with his wife Maureen, former California Secretary of State. Are you here? Yay! Welcome, Mr. Jones. Thank you for being here. I mean, it's not every day that you meet a former Secretary of State. What a huge honor. Also want to acknowledge Richard Tiefenk, also his wife Marilyn. He is the former Pomona Police Chief, but I know he has a long history in policing in the Los Angeles, Southern California area. Richard, are you here with your wife? Welcome. She's on a plane to Hawaii, yes? Very nice. Also from a member of Mount Sac Board of Trustees, we have Dr. Manuel Baca. Mr. Baca, are you here, sir? Okay, that's okay. No worries. We also have the privilege of having Steve Bader, the son of Chuck Bader. Steve, so please stand, give him a nice big hand. Do we have John Avila? John, are you here? John, welcome. Thank you. He's a former Pomona School Board member. Thank you for being here. Also want to acknowledge my good friend and former mayor of the city of Laverne, Don Kendrick. Welcome, Don. Do we have Kurt Morris? Well, if you didn't know, Kurt Morris is a former mayor of San Dimas. And so you can see that Chuck really had a presence and an influence regionally. Also want to acknowledge the former mayor of Diamond Bar, John Forbing. John, are you here? You generally know when John is here. He stands very tall, and I don't see him. All right. And do we have the Honorable Jim Brulte, former California State Senator? There's very few people in the state of California that have had the impact as California State Senator Brulte. Thank you for your service, sir, and thank you for being here. Did I miss anyone?
Former council member.
Oh, we also part of our planning committee, we have former city council member Deborah Martin. And I know, just want to acknowledge, because we are partners with the Pomona Chamber of Commerce, Monique Manzanares and your team, if you'll just please stand, and just thank you for your work. Appreciate it. So I will say a few words, and then I will call up Mr. T-Fank. And Richard, am I saying your last name right? Okay. I always worry about that, butchering somebody's name. I'm going to do my best to read what I have here, but I have a 2-year-old. He's about 37 pounds, and my arm starts to hurt after a while. When I first met Chuck Bader many years ago, I felt an immediate connection to him. So when Roseanne reached out to me over a year ago about honoring and naming the city building after Chuck, I said, let's do it. And I know, Roseanne, we made this a very easy process for you. Things happen in a matter of days. More like a year. But Roseanne, knowing government, was very gracious. As many of you know, Chuck was born in the city of Los Angeles and raised in Pomona. He graduated from Pomona High School in 1958. I mentioned that connection. I was born in the city of Los Angeles myself, and I graduated from Pomona High School in the last century, 1988. So Chuck and I are 30 years apart. He graduated in 71. I was born in 70, and was elected to the Pomona City Council at that time, and he was the youngest person to sit on the Pomona City Council at the time. Was he 12 or how old was he? He was really young. I think Danielle Soda has it now. She was actually elected her senior year of college at UC Santa Cruz, trying to get to meetings. That must have been tough. And of course, he was married to the illustrious and beautiful Roseanne Bader. For the record, in full transparency, Roseanne was my science teacher at Emerson Junior High School back in the 1980s. And she was 18 when she was my teacher. As many of you know, and I should mention, they also lived in this beautiful home in Lincoln Park, and now they live in Comanche Hills. They are Pomona through and through. As many of you know, after Chuck was elected to the California State Assembly, where he served from 1982 to 1990, did I get that right? He served as the vice chair of Assembly Education Committee and fought for educational reform. What was evident to me, as I had the privilege of getting to know Chuck Bader, was that he was truly a public servant. And I think many of you know we live in a time where people don't have a tremendous amount of trust in government. And yet Chuck was the complete opposite. He was a man of tremendous integrity. He understood that people elected us to office because they placed trust in us. And we had an obligation to never violate that trust. He was also a caring man. He cared about housing, environment, our young people, and working men and women. And up until the time Chuck was diagnosed with cancer, he continued to serve Pomona. So today we honor your service to Pomona. At this time, I'd like to introduce Richard T-Fank, former Pomona police chief and a longtime friend of Chuck. Please give a warm welcome